Welcome all of you. It's really just a really special, almost historic day because we're rededicating the original hospital that was built back in 1971. They did the groundbreaking with Bob Hope right behind this building with an iron chipping and kicking off the fundraising for 2 years in 1969. And in 1971, they'd raised enough money to open this building with 20 physicians and 220 employees. Amongst this 80-acre date grove that Dolores and Bob had donated, and there was an airstrip out here, and probably people like John Kirchie, who's here, and others would remember that. We affectionately have called this the Ike Wing for years, and today, of course, we're going to be very honored to officially name this the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Building. So, the Washingtons have helped inspire the generosity of many, and some of you are here who have helped make this happen. But the funds that we needed to raise it quickly, were for the seismic retrofit and upgrade and renovation of this 1969 construction, and it has really been an amazing 2 years of fundraising. In the program, I've listed a number of people that have helped make this happen. Of course, Dennis and Phyllis, as I just mentioned, but we've listed the names of those that have made commitments to help this Ike Wing become the Washington Building. And it takes a certain amount of loyalty to do that because there's no return on investment for investing in something that just has to be strengthened and renovated. So it's true loyalty and great leadership that the Washingtons helped so many of us and our trustees come to make these commitments. And I'm just going to name those that made million-dollar commitments over the last 14 months. Jackie Autry, the Berger Foundation, Jim Houston, Bob Howard and Peggy Jacobs, Susie and Mike Leprino, Harold Matzner, Mary and Ray Methune, John and Carol Moran, friends of the Washingtons, Greg and Stacy RENKER, Mike and Jan Salta. Julie Irene Kaufman began at $500,000 when she came up to Ed Peterson and I while we were having breakfast talking about the Ike Wing, how are we going to do this? And she said, well, I can't give you $1 million, but I can give you $500,000. This was just at breakfast at El Dorado, which I now realized I need to do more breakfasts. And, but in addition to that, those that gave and continued to give: Donald Davis, Harry and Joy Goldstein, Alan and Helen Green, Cressa family, Becky Benaroya, Miles and Sally Berger, Richard and Cheryl Bressler, Rosemary and Dean Buntrock, the Bob Hope Classic. It's really Desert Classic Charities, but I can't get over the name, so I keep saying the Bob Hope Classic no matter what they call it. Sam and Ann Ginn, Lois Horvitz, bless her soul, Mary Vaughn Lester, Charles and Stacy Matheson, friends of the Washingtons, Carol Swanson Price, and we're in the Price Plaza, Anthony and Elaine Scrugley, Dave and Joan Traitel, Stephen and Carol Hansel, Ken Yonce and Linda Damiano. We really want to thank all of them, as well as our board of directors and trustees, for their support. And this, I also want to thank the city of Rancho Mirage for all of the help that they have given to us over these years for the many projects, including this one. And we're privileged to have Mayor Hobart here with us today, Mayor Pro Tem Ted Weil, Councilman Richard Kite, Councilman Charles Townsend, Councilwoman Iris Smotrick, City Manager and City Manager Randy Binder. I really appreciate all the work and help that you all have done and the commitments that you've made towards this 45th anniversary and the citizens of Rancho Mirage. Thank you. As we celebrate 45 years of delivering healthcare excellence, and to better appreciate how we began and how we managed to achieve the high expectations of our founders who helped build this building and went on, and as we rededicate the original building, our president and CFO and CEOs, Aubrey Serfling, wanted every attendee to have a copy of the original brochure that Dolores Hope and the founders created to help raise the original $5 million, which is all this cost. The yellow tasseled brochure that you see and that Ace Printing was able to reproduce, that was a work of art that they reproduced. You have a copy of it, and it's really quite an amazing piece. And you'll see a letter from President Eisenhower, and this is an original letter from him when he wrote, "This is one of my great honors to have a medical center named after me." And he was a man that told it from his heart. And you'll have letters from others there. President Nixon, who was here in 1971 to cut the ribbon, and of course Mamie Eisenhower. But you'll also see in there the original vision that they had for this. You'll look on the third or fourth page, and you'll take a look at the design that they had. And that design has actually been carried forward and carried through, and Aubrey is going to say a bit about that. But I want you to take a look and appreciate that original concept, but also within the vision that they had when they hired Edward Durrell Stone. And they literally chose who was one of the leading architects in the United States in the 1960s, next to Frank Lloyd Wright, to design and to set the signature for this entire campus with this design for this building. Some of you have a flyer that share that Edward Durrell Stone also designed the Kennedy Center, but Aubrey will mention that a little bit more. But with the donation of the original 80 acres, the Annenbergs, the Firestones, the Kiewits, the Propsts, the Kirchies, and so many others really fulfilled President and General Eisenhower's vision, which was, I want this to be a place of excellence, not like Eisenhower College, where we learned a lesson, where we needed philanthropy at that college to step up and keep it a place of excellence. It didn't happen. I need you, each of you, and the future generations to commit themselves to philanthropy, because I realize that's the foundation stone for excellence. And I think we've done that. And I think each of you that are here that have made commitments to this but have also made commitments to Eisenhower are part of that legacy. And I think you are due a round of applause for that. Thank you. I'd like to bring up our President and CEO, Aubrey Serfling.
Thank you, Michael. Where's Ali? He's the head of facilities. And Ali, when Michael made a comment about the airstrip over there, that really had a ring to it to me. Now, I don't think we could handle the Washington plane, but maybe we could handle something. I think this project started out in a way that only an engineer could appreciate, because it started with the seismic strengthening of this building, and that was the focus of it, and it's still something that we are doing and we need to do. But it's become much more than that, because the more I learned about the building, the more I learned about the history, the more I learned about Edward Durrell Stone. I think we have a treasure right here before us that will be a treasure not only for Eisenhower Medical Center, but I think it will be a treasure for the Valley. Modernism, as many of you know, is a very in thing in the Valley right now. And I know a lot of people are going to come here and admire this building and all that it stands for. And my pledge to you, Dennis and Phyllis, is I'm going to make it as beautiful on the inside as it is on the outside. So thank you very, very much. Also, I want to thank Dennis, because it turns out that he has a really strong interest in landscaping, and so do I. So we re-landscaped the whole front of the hospital. He came over several times and gave some ideas that were wonderful ideas, and I think it really just frames the whole building and makes the whole thing even more beautiful. So thank you, Dennis, very much for doing that, and Phyllis as well. So next, I've learned how to make an event successful here in the Valley, which is be brief. That seems to be generally appreciated. And I'll turn it over to our chairman, Mr. Greg RENKER, who's going to tell some stories. Don't worry, Dennis and Phyllis, they're only going to be positive ones.
Hello, everyone. Stacy and I have been neighbors of Dennis and Phyllis for almost 20 years in Indian Wells. But it was about 10 years ago that Dennis and Phyllis were generous enough to offer their amazing island in British Columbia as an auction item at a vintage scholarship event. And Stacy and I were lucky enough to swoop it up. She liked to say that we won it. I had to remind her that we bought it. And so we rounded up Michael and Stephanie and Aubrey and Lori and some young people, and we went to Dennis and Phyllis's island. And it was out of this world. But when we got there, what we didn't expect was that Dennis and Phyllis were going to be there. And not only that, they spent the whole weekend with us, every meal. And that's the first thing I learned about Dennis and Phyllis and their generosity, because they gave us their time, which we all know is the most precious thing any of us have. So since then, Stacy and I have had the amazing opportunity to almost travel the world with Dennis and Phyllis. And we've had the chance to see their philanthropy and their generosity in action. And we have looked in the eyes of underprivileged high school students who were on their way to a scholarship through the amazing and generous donations that just keep coming and coming from Dennis and Phyllis. I've seen buildings on college campuses. I've seen a stadium. I've seen things in Canada that caught me by surprise because they were quiet and under the radar. I've met personal close friends of Dennis and Phyllis who have been helped by them in very quiet but remarkable ways. And so they've really been an inspiration to me and Stacy, and I know to many of you, because of the way that they are. Thank you. So about 2.5 years ago, I got a phone call from Dennis, and he said, "Don't you guys have an earthquake problem over there you got to take care of?" I said, "Yes, we do." He said, "Well, what's that thing going to cost?" I said, "Well, I don't really know, Dennis. I would have to check, but it's going to be in the neighborhood of about $25 million. And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Phyllis and I will put up half, but it's going to be in a challenge. You have to go raise the other half to make mine good." Well, we had never done that before. Michael says in 45 years at Eisenhower, we've never been challenged. And we were uncertain about whether or not we were going to pull it off. So when we announced it to the board, uncertain of their response, the board responded with $4 million in donations in a matter of about 2 minutes. And any of you who were there will remember that amazing event and what a tribute that is to Dennis and Phyllis and how remarkable it is that we've come this far this fast. Thank you. Now, I know you also know that in Dennis's career, among the many things that he's accomplished, he created one of the largest construction firms in the United States. So a couple of weeks ago, Dennis and I were on his boat in Miami, just the two of us, and he says, "Hey, I think you ought to tell Michael I'm going to give him another $2.5 million." I said, "Well, wow, Dennis, that's amazing. You know, what prompted it?" He said, "Well, I've actually had it in my back pocket all along because I knew you guys were going to be over budget." So, excited to be here today. Privileged to be with the two of you and honored to be able to welcome you to the stage, and thank you for all that you do for all of us.
Thank you, Greg, for those very heartfelt words. You're a true friend. You know, we're all very blessed here in the desert to have such a wonderful facility here and a staff of many, many people here to help all people. And it's just, we're very proud to be here and very proud to be involved in this. Eisenhower Medical Center has a great team that through the years just gets better and better. Since the start of fundraising in 1965 by a small group of very prominent visionary people, they made it happen. Opening a wing in 1971, here we stand today, 2015, preparing for the challenges ahead that meet this wonderful group of executives here, and I'm sure to take care of all of our care needs. In the leadership here of Greg RENKER as chairman, Aubrey Serfling as CEO, Michael Landis as president of the Eisenhower Foundation, you're in pretty good hands. The executive staff, the doctors, the nurses, the volunteers, everyone here helps build this wonderful team. And I think that we're just going to be stronger and stronger here in the future, and I'm glad just to be a part of it, Phyllis and I. Now, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to tell you just a little story here about our life and how we got involved in giving. Phyllis and I were married in 1964. She was, don't want to tell her age, but she was 20. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. I was 29 and she was 22. But we'd been going together about 6 months before we decided to get married. We went to get the license. And the gal says, "What's your age?" I says, 29. And they said, "What's your age?" She says, 22. I said, "You told me you're 24. She said, "I didn't think you was like me if I was that old." And I said, "Honey, I'd like you better if you're 18. But Phyllis was she was a beauty queen at the University of Montana. And she was a goody shoo-shoo girl, as I call them. She was in this sororities involved in all this stuff. And I saw her actually in a bar with a bunch of sorority girls. And I said, she found the note later on and said, "Long legs, big boobs, redhead." So I arranged a blind date anyway. But she graduated in her teaching degree, and I was and she had to pay off her student loan and all that. And I'd worked for a company. I was responsible. I was a little wild, but I was about 19 years old when I came out of Alaska working construction. I went to work for a company, and I was there 10 years till I was 29 years old. When we got married, we went on a honeymoon, and for 2 days. My superior said, "Hey, you got to get back to work." Because we worked hard. We worked 6, 7 days in those days. And I thought, "God, that's not too cool." And we were gone 2 days, and I thought to myself, I've been working here, working my tail off. The company's going nowhere because they're not going to invest in the future in new equipment, just like we're doing here in this building. And I said, "I can't stay here." We got married, came back, and quit. And so I said there, and Phyllis was all supportive, and we lived in this little cabin. She did the laundry down at the laundromat for several years. We went ahead and talked what we're going to do, and I said, "I don't know what I'm going to do," but within 2 weeks, I had several job offers. And I had decided to go to work for Peter Kiewit, the Kiewit building, big contractor out of Omaha, Nebraska, but I didn't want to move to Wyoming very bad, and our best friend was named Gary Gallagher. So we go out on a Saturday night, and we stayed in Spokane, Washington, and we had a little hangover Sunday morning, and we were having a red beer, if you guys know what that is, but just cure the hangover. And Gary says, "What are you going to do, Dennis?" And I said, "I'm thinking about going to work for Peter Kiewit." And he says, "God, with your experience at your age, you can do anything anywhere. Why don't you go to work on your own?" And I said, "I haven't got any money." And I said, "We're just getting married." And he says, "Well, I'll lend you $50,000. He says, "You can dig basements." And he says, "You'll do as much as you do for wages." And so he said, "I got to talk to my dad." So we went in the other room at this Caterpillar dealership, talked to his father. And his father says, "Okay." He said, "Dennis, there's 2 things I really worry about in life, though. Greed and sympathy." And he says, "I think you're too soft, you're too kind." He didn't know me very well. But anyway, so he said, "Let's start you out with $30,000. If you need the other 20, you come back and talk to me." So we went ahead and we worked for about a year. We were fairly successful, just struggling along, getting her loans paid off, buying a car. And so the following year, I get a call from Bill Gallagher, the fellow that lent me the $30,000. He said, "I want to see you." And I said, "Oh, what's he want to see me for?" So I go down there, and he said, "Dennis, I want to talk to you about something here." And he said, "I'm chairman of the fundraising here for the new community hospital here in Missoula, Montana." And he said, "I'd like to see you and Phyllis contribute to a room, and we'll name the room after you. It's $25,000. I go, $25,000? This is a long time ago. Like, holy cow. And he said, "No, just a minute. I said, "I know you're struggling." He said, "But remember this. 5 years, you can pay it off. $5,000 a year for 5 years. And here's something that you can take with you. I'll always remember. If that's going to make the difference of your success, you won't be around anyway." I never forgot that, and we've been given ever since. And, and people... And I'll just leave you with this. I think that talking to your kids, your friends, it isn't about how much you give, it's what you give, the meaning and the gratification you get in giving. Here. That's...
Well, now that he told our life story, I'll have to add to that honeymoon story from my uncle, who said, going out the door to the for the ride, he said, "Sister, I'm going to tell you one thing. He seems like a pretty nice guy, but," he said, "you got a tiger by the tail, and you have a long ride, and I hope you can hang on." That's a true story. And many a times I was hanging on for my life, but it's been a great journey and wonderful. We've had a wonderful, wonderful life. And as everyone, all of our ups and downs and down the highways and over the hills, and we have more fun today laughing about it. So that was our beginning. So I'm very humbled to be here today, and I too wanted to say thank you, as Dennis did. And I wanted to have my wine glass here to raise a toast, but that's why we're all here, so I guess we'll drink the wine afterwards. I want to thank all of you for joining into this effort to making the Eisenhower Medical Center the best private hospital and staff of service, and the research and the doctors and everyone, the volunteers, the best in the state and around the country. It is a fact today that we depend on each other more and more in this private sector for health care, and especially in our community of retired people, where we need the attention more for one reason or another. I know we all have had experiences in other medical centers around the country, and we truly do know that Eisenhower is one of a kind. There is no other like it. We have no help from anyone else but all of you out here and others. So that's why we're here to toast to these fine doctors, like our friend Joel Hirschberg. Many of you know the 24/7 group, with Carol leading at the head here, our volunteers, and many nurses and doctors, and thousands of staff, some 3,000, I believe, that our lives depend on, and we are truly blessed because of this. No one really ever wants or plans to be sick or need a hospital. We never know when those unknown days of pain are going to be. It can be in a second, and we need better health and happiness. We all want that. It is like the songs that we sing about each other's relationships. I can't remember the name of the song, but it's, "I need you so. Don't leave me now. Our days will be better." The Eisenhower Medical Center is the wind in our sail that we all depend on for strength. So again, I say, we are here to celebrate today, the legacy, and continue for the next century. And Dennis and I are very proud to be able to be part of this venture in our lifetime. I want to just end with my personal story about my late father. Just to be sentimental for a moment, Rudy Peterson, almost 40 years ago, I was a young mother of 2 sons, Kyle and Kevin, 5 and 3. We came to Palm Springs, Palm Desert, for the last month of my father's life, after he had been at MD Anderson Center for cancer of the colon and liver. They, of course, could do no more for him. So we returned as here for a month at a little condo that Dennis was able to help us with. He loved being here in the desert from the Montana colds and winds, and he was right up here in the far second story, in the corner window somewhere, as I recall, coming to visit day after day. He would look out at these palm trees, standing tall in the sunshine and the breeze and the flowers. And every time I drive up to this day, I feel his presence around. Every time I can hear him say, if I never get to heaven, this is the closest I know I'll be. I have seen the beauty and I have felt the care at this place. He was a godly and proudly wonderful man with a genuine smile. And he also said to me, Phyllis, you thank Dennis. He is a very good husband, and you take care of him. Those were his departing words when he departed from Eisenhower Medical Center. I know today and the rest of this century, he will be smiling now from heaven as he sees these new Washingtonian trees and the honor of having our name on this grand building of the Eisenhower Medical Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis and Dennis. I'd like to ask Mayor Dana Hobart in the city of Rancho Mirage to come up and present a proclamation. And thank you, Mayor Hobart, for being here.
Proclamations have a way of having a lot of whereases. Usually we skip some of them just to hurry things along. But City Council didn't feel we should be skipping any of the whereases today. And so I'd like to ask Dennis and Phyllis if you'd come up here and give us an opportunity to honor you from the city of Rancho Mirage with this proclamation. You'll see there's a copy of it for eyes that are not as young as they used to be. Whereas Dennis and Phyllis Washington have been guided by the core values of integrity, compassion, courage, vision, and perseverance in their lives. And whereas the Washingtons have made charity and philanthropy a central part of their philosophy to pay it forward for future generations through the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundations. And whereas their goal is to give people, especially youth, the tools they need to succeed in life, especially having personally experienced a Horatio Alger rags to riches life themselves. And whereas while their giving has traditionally centered on supporting important educational initiatives in Montana and the Northwest, their support for Eisenhower Medical Center marks their most important healthcare commitment to date. And whereas the signature of Edward Durrell Stone, architectural landmark, represents the design inspiration for the entire Eisenhower Medical Campus, and whereas it is the Eisenhower Medical Center Board of Trustees' honor to add the Dennis and Phyllis Washington name under the medical center's namesake of President and General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Dana Hobart, Mayor of the City of Rancho Mirage, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim November 16th, 2015, in the City of Rancho Mirage as Dennis and Phyllis Washington Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Give you that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dennis, Phyllis, stay standing, if you don't mind. You can set that down. This is the only time Dennis is allowing me to tell him what to do. He said, use up all your chits right now. So, Dean, you want to hand that to me? And what we're going to have you do, Dennis and Phyllis, is, so I'm going to have you push the green button. We are going to unveil the new entryway letters. So push the button, Phyllis. That looks great. All right, everyone. This has been fun. We've got to stay warm. So we have the opportunity right now to enter the interior and we just see the renovation of the new interior, which we will hopefully have done in the next 2.5, 3 years, if Ali and Ken Novak and others can make that happen. And enjoy.